with this baked in now, I'm going to save the scene again so that our posts are now baked in, so I can then instance this entire lot, make a fair amount of it unique, and then amend properties as necessary. So I'm just going to tighten all this lot off a bit. Okay, and then simply make sure that's on show all there. I'm going to group select all of that there. Okay, and then I'm going to instance all that across to there. Okay, so that's basically a direct copy of our system. So what we could do is we could have just amended these guys in here. However, it's obviously good to have individual systems for each one, just in case you obviously want to re-perform the simulation at a later date. So I'm going to zoom back in by clicking on that button there, get the right one, and then obviously this one, what I want to label is, I want to call this guy, let's call it PF Source Inner Beams. So I'm going to rename that PF Source Inner Beams. Now making sure that this thing is actually turned off still, okay, because obviously at the moment the birth script and also the script operator is still dealing with the posts. Alright, so what I want to do is I obviously want to go through the birth script and amend some properties in here. First things first, I think we'll actually rename this event. Let's call that Inner Beams Placement. Inner Beams Placement. I'm going to get rid of the O1. Okay, and what I want to do is make this guy unique and edit the script. So therefore what I want to do then is obviously set the correct array name and also the correct referencing for the name in here as well. So in here what I want to do is set this as Inner Beams, and the name of the objects in the scene as previously are Inner Beams, like so. So I can basically just call that Inner Beams there, and then here I want to say that's Inner Beams Array, Inner Beams Array Transform. Okie doke, then that is all that sorted out. So that's that one done. So just to test, I'm going to turn this off here. Okay, so the particles are not piped out to this next event. I'm going to turn this guy on. So now we should have particles, there we go, in our Inner Beams layer. Alright, going to turn the system back off again just for safety, re-enable this speed test. However, what I want to do is obviously change this force operator, so it's not the vortex posts we're actually going to be using, it's going to be the one for the inner beam. So therefore I can make this guy unique, okay, and then remove that and replace it with the vortex inner beams. Okay, speed test we will leave as is, and then what we'll do is go through and set some additional properties in here. So this one I want to rename that, call it Inner Beams Rip Out. Get rid of the O1 again. The spin I'm going to make unique, so we've got a different spin value on here. So this one I'm actually going to set that to 150 by 150, same kind of problem as we had before with this update. The speed I'm going to make that unique as well, and I'm going to set that to a bit more of an exaggerated explosion outwards this time, because obviously these particular objects are lighter than the posts. So I'm going to set the speed to 60 with a variation of 60 as well, but I'll leave the divergence as is. In the force operator we obviously need to make that unique and set the get this vortex post out of the way and add in the vortex inner beams. Okay, and the gravity we can actually leave as it currently stands. The script operator, again, we will come back in a second and revisit that. However, we'll go through the rest of these guys first, and then same deal as before, go through and replace the script operator in a second. So I think at this particular time I'm just going to bin all the script operators in the other events, these two down here, and I can just copy those across in a second once I've edited it. Okay, the collision operator, the collision test, will actually leave as is, so that's then piped into this post collision, which again I'm going to rename so it's relevant to this system. This one is going to be called inner beams collision, and in this one I think I'm going to kill this split amount so that all of the guys basically bounce before hitting the ground and stopping again. So let's set this spin to a higher value. I'm actually going to increase that up to 200 with a variation of 200, because like I say, lighter objects, so therefore they're going to spin around a fair amount more when they actually hit the deck. This force I'm going to make unique again, and actually I'm going to set this force to 500, and I'm going to add in, well, I'm going to remove that guy first, and I'm going to add in the vortex inner beams in there. Okay, so gravity we will basically leave as is, and this time what I want to do is in this guy I want to introduce a speed test, which is basically something we've already got set up in here to check whether or not the system is basically come down to pretty much a standstill. So something that you can't really differentiate between not seeing anything move and something you can see something move. So let's just copy that guy in there, and then I'm going to instance that across in there. And because we've obviously done that, what I want to do is take this collision test which we set up down here, and I'm going to actually, I think at this stage what I'll do, I think I'll rename it. Let's call that collision limited, because obviously it's different. So the collision limited 01, this one is going to be renamed. I'll call that collision limited 02, and then I'm going to copy this guy, so I've got it, copy that, and I'm going to instance that across to there. Okay, so it's limited to amount of times it can collide before it goes in here, so they're kind of bouncing around a bit before the speed's killed, unless it obviously slowed down, so it's less than this test value. So I'm going to drop that in there, and I'll drop that in there like that. Okay, so same kind of principle as before. This time obviously I'm going to need to rename this as well, so I'm going to rename that. Let's call that inner beams kill speed and rotation. So this and this are fine. This obviously needs to be changed, so what we need to do is copy this guy here and instance it. There you go. I'm just going to instance it in there and get rid of the posts one that was in there to start with. I'm just going to pull that across to there so it's not interacting with that, and then that will again test for speed and then go into the moving again. So let's rename this, so that's inner beams moving again. Actually, I'm going to get rid of these 01s as well. Okay, and this time I think we'll leave the speed as is, so everything's just kind of lifted off the floor. I think we'll leave the rotation as is as well. We obviously need to change the force operator here, so this one I think we obviously need to grab this vortex inner beams here, So let's copy that, and I'm going to drop that in there. Just instance it in there and overwrite that guy. The gravity we obviously need to make unique as well, to basically suggest that the object is obviously lighter, which is obviously something we need to replace throughout the rest of this system as well, which is something we didn't do earlier on. So I need to make that unique. I'm going to drop that influence down to 60, so therefore the spacebar has less influence overall on the system. I'm going to copy this guy, and I'm going to instance it in there, get rid of the old one, and I'm going to instance it in there and get rid of that old one in there. So therefore it's just the lower influence one. As you can see, it's highlighted in every single one of these guys. Okay, so that's pretty much our system setup. So the last thing that we want to do is to set up the script operator again. Now, same deal as before, making sure we're at frame 0. I think what I'll do is just turn this off for the minute. We don't actually have any other scripts in here apart from this birth operator, so I'm going to turn this on, okay, and then just play through this to make sure that it's going to work okay. That looks fine to me. So we've got this kind of nicer, greater explosive outgassing, in essence, well, explosive output, and then they're bouncing around and then being dragged in again as required. So I'm just going to go to the top viewport. Again, the objects are not moving at this particular point, quite simply because we don't have the script set in there yet. So we've got a nice kind of distribution pattern out here. So the last thing, like I say, we need to do is back at frame 0, I'm going to make this script unique, turn it back on, and then going to go in and edit it. So make sure we actually go through and edit this correctly. So it's going to be, let's label this move inner beams array equals inner beams as array. So therefore I need to do that down here as well. So move inner beams array, which references the transformation matrix. Okay, so nice quick piece of editing. Okay, so that's that script set up. So I'll just close that guy, and I can simply just copy that, drop it in here. Same deal as before. I'm actually going to do it above this speed test in here. Don't need to drop it in here, and I need to drop it in here. So same principle as before. I'm going to close this guy at frame 0, save the scene again for safety, and then go to the camera viewport and play through the sequence again from 0 to 200, making sure it obviously doesn't loop back round to frame 0 again, because obviously we've got these guys turned off. So click on OK on that, play it there, and now the system will go through, bake the geometry out. These guys will pivot round a lot more than previously in the other system, and then this guy kind of hovered around a little bit and flew back down to earth. Okay, and then that's sorted out, so I can go back into particle view and turn off the system before I do anything else. So I can now play through the system as I require and just scrub through, and obviously that's our inner beam sorted out. So if I unhide the one that I've already baked out as well, we can now see both of these guys in action. So you'll notice that some of these objects hit the deck and get implanted straight away, which is obviously the post and beam stuff. If I just make that, so you can view that in the viewport, you can start seeing this kind of breaking up really nicely, lifting up, swinging around, and then being dumped down. Obviously you've got this kind of one guy which is not really behaving, but I think we'll live with that. If actually just for this example, I'm just going to turn on real time and then just play through. So this is going to break up and swirl around a couple of times, swiveling around. Just one of these guys, like I say, it's just annoying that sometimes that happens. I mean, like in this kind of case, what you might want to do is kill the keyframes for that relevant one, and then redo the simulation with, say, for example, a different seed in the rotation, for example, in the spin even, just so we don't get that one guy which is just sitting there and not moving around. But I think we'll live with it for the moment. Okay, so that's the posts and beams and the inner posts and beams sorted out. So I'm going to hide those two, and I'm going to unhide the roof support. So 2 systems left to do. Well, 2 systems left to bake out anyway, so bear with us. I mean, it's taken a little bit of time, but obviously it's going to be worth it at the end of the day. Okay, so back at frame 0, obviously these guys are turned off, so I'm going to save this scene out as it currently stands, and then I'm going to go through and maximize this guy again. The next couple of systems that we're going to do is going to be repetitive. Now, it's something obviously I need to go through to set the system up, but if you want to skip forward, then please feel free. Okay, so it's just going to be repetition with value changes. It's tedious, it's a pain in the backside, but it's obviously something that we need to basically set up. So for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm just, well, these next couple here, I'm just going to skip through these quite quickly, because like I said, we've already established how to copy the stuff across and set up in this guy here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this guy, instanced out across, take off the zoom, come in here, I'm going to rename this. This one is going to be PF Source Roof Supports, so I'm going to rename that PF Source Roof Supports, and this one is going to be Roof Supports Placement. Okay, birth script, obviously it needs to make unique, and I'm going to just go through and edit this guy. So again, same kind of principles as before, so you need to make this unique, and then just simply go through, edit the array, and also the name that it's referring to in the scene. So the scene objects are going to be called roof supports, so therefore I can just go through and do that. So making sure the system's obviously turned off at this particular stage before we start doing anything else. So roof supports, so this is going to be roof supports array, and then change them in here as well, roof supports array, and then in here too. Okay, that's got all of that lot in there, so that's that. And just to test it as before, I'm going to kill this speed test and turn the system on just to make sure we've got all the particles in the right locations, which we do. Brilliant. Okay, so back at frame 0, I'm going to turn this guy off, enable speed test, and then start renaming these guys as well. So this one I obviously need to call roof supports rip out, so I'm going to rename that. Let's call that roof supports rip out, kill the O1. The spin on this one, I'm actually going to set that to a lower value. I'm actually going to make that unique, and I'm going to set that down to a value of 100 with a variation of 100 as well. The speed, I think what I'll do is I'll let's have a little bit of value add in there originally. I'm actually going to increase that so it's more explosive, because obviously the object is going to be lighter, so I'm going to make that unique. I'm going to set the speed value to 75 with a variation of 75 in there as well. The force, I think obviously we need to get rid of the vortex inner beams, so therefore obviously need to make that unique and kill that, so that I now need to obviously introduce the vortex roof supports, which is this guy here, leaving the influence as is, and then obviously need to set the gravity to a new value, so a new influence value in here. I'm actually going to set that to a reduced value, so I'm going to make that unique and set that to 50 to suggest that the object is obviously lighter, because obviously less gravity influence. And at this point I think I'll go through and replace all the gravities in the other events as well. So I'm going to get that over there, and then this guy over there too. Make sure I grab the thing. Okay, so that's that sorted. The script operator, I'm gonna, again as before, get rid of this, get rid of that as well, and then go through and edit this in a second once I've got the rest of the system set up and I've obviously tested it in the viewport. So the script operator I'm going to change in a sec. The collision test I can leave as is. The inner beams collision, I obviously need to re-edit the name of that, so I need to call that roof supports collision. Get rid of the O1, and the spin in here, I think what we'll basically do is I think we'll change that. I'm going to make that unique. I'm going to set that to 150 and 150 on the rotation. Okay, so force in here, obviously I need to basically change that as well, so that needs to be made unique, and obviously I need to remove that guy and add in the vortex roof supports. Okay, just notice that I missed one up here as well out of my haste, so I'm going to make that unique, get rid of that guy and add in the roof supports in there as well. Okay, so that's sorted out. So in there, got the vortex in there, yep, and we've got this one in here as well. Gravity is obviously instanced across. Speed test is okay to test for value 2 to make sure it's slowing down. Limited collision as before. Rename this one, so I'm going to call that roof supports kill speed and rotation. Okay, so that's okay, that's okay. This guy I obviously need to instance from this guy up here, so I'm going to copy this and then instance that into, where are you, you're in here, so instance that in there and get rid of that one that was in there to start with. Okay, one last event to tweak, and I'm just going to rename that roof supports moving it again, get rid of the O1, and the speed again I'm going to leave as is, the rotation I'm going to leave as is as well. Obviously the force I need to basically change, so I'm going to copy that from here and then I'm going to instance it across to there and get rid of the old one. Gravity again is obviously instance across. Right, I hope you followed that. It's quite quick. Like I say, it's just repetition of what we've already done in here. So again, frame 0, making sure that we're basically all the way back down here. I think what I'll do is because like I say, I've already covered the construction in here, I've already covered the instancing and also the changing of values in here, and also done it quickly in here. If you want to, what I think I'll do is once I've actually got all the simulations sorted out, it's all baked down, I'm going to save out a separate scene which will be something like a barn tornado baked or something like that, so you've got the entire system already baked out before we actually start dealing with the dust and debris stuff, which we'll drop in over here in a bit. So if you're not following this bit, don't worry about it. Like I say, you can basically skip forward and load in the baked scene, which I'll set up in a second. Okay, the last thing to do is to basically tweak this script operator and instance it across down here. So I'm just going to make this guy unique, go into the script, and then let's change this so it's roof supports that I'm dealing with, so roof supports, and change that guy so it references the correct objects in the scene. So change the array name in here, move roof supports array, and that is pretty much it in there. Okay, right, so that's that done. Okay, with the script operator sorted out now, what I can do is turn on the system, making sure the scene's saved out, and I've also made sure that I've got real time turned off, because I obviously turned that on when I was testing out the bake earlier on. So closing that guy, I'm going to click on the play button, and that's basically going to now scoot forward and bake out our system. So this is our system about baked out here. So it's working quite nicely. We've got a nice kind of decent throw going on here, and that's the full 200 frames sorted out. So what I can do now is go back into particle view and also turn off the system. Okay, so that's now the roof support sorted out. So what I can do now is just make sure that that looks quite cool with the rest of our geometry in the scene, apart from the roof tiles and building slats. So I'm just going to go to smooth and highlights and play through this. Obviously this isn't doing it in real time, so I've got the slats coming out, or the support slats even, and then the rest of the guys being broken up, and obviously you can see these heavy objects hitting the deck first, while you've got these lighter ones kind of spinning around the vortex. So that works really nicely. So I'll just turn real time on and just play through this. So that's kind of breaking up pretty cool, being flung outwards. Alright, okay, that's that sorted out. One last system to do, so I'm just going to turn all these guys off and then turn this guy back on, and that's the slats and the roof tiles. So I'm going to save this guy, go back into particle view, and again same principles as before. I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly so we can just start editing our debris in a second. So I'm just going to select all these guys here, instance this guy across. So I'm going to hold down shift, and then let's just drag that guy across there like that. Okay, and then what I want to do is kill the zoom and then rename this guy. Let's call it PF source roof tiles. Okay, I'm going to rename this one. Let's call it roof tiles placement, and then obviously we need to adjust this, well, amend this birth script, so obviously you need to make this unique, and then obviously click on this edit script, and let's go and start editing this thing. So what we need to do is obviously give it a unique array name as previously. So this one is going to be called roof. We'll actually call it the same name as we've got the objects in the scene, which is, if memory serves, it's tile slats. That's it. So we'll call that tiles slats array. So tiles slats array equals tiles slats as array. So two S's in there, making sure we've got the same in there. Yes, we do. Okay, and then it's just a case of replace the array name in here. So tiles slats array count, and then tiles slats array transform for the transformation matrix. Okay, so that's that. Again, just double check things, making sure it's all okay, and then kill the speed test in there. Turn the system on, and we should have everything distributed over there, which we do. Brilliant. Okay, so turn the system back off, and I've obviously need to replace this force operator, so I'm going to make that unique, get rid of that, and then add in the tiles and slats vortex space warp there. Okay, speed test is okay. I'm going to rename this event. Let's call that tiles slats rip out. So actually no, it's roof tiles rip out. So it's the same naming convention as the rest of the events, even though the birth script was slightly named differently. That's okay. Spin operator, I think we're actually going to change. What we want to do is we actually want to increase the spin on that, so I'm going to make that unique, and I'm going to set that to 200 for the spin rate and the variation. The speed itself, I'm actually going to make that unique as well. I'm going to increase that up to 100 for the speed and the variation. And then the force, I'm gonna make that unique as well, and then drop in the let's have a look, where is it, the vortex tiles and slats in there. Okay, the gravity I'm also going to make unique, quite simply because obviously this is the lightest object that we need to bake out, so I'm going to make that unique. I'm going to set the influence value to 40. The script operator, as before, we'll deal with that in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that, I'm going to make it unique at this stage, and then I'm going to copy this force operator, this gravity, and I'm going to get rid of this gravity in here and also the script by instancing that across and then just overwriting those two, and same deal in here, get rid of you and get rid of you. Okay, so I'm just going to rename this guy in here because it's the next event we need to look at, so that's going to be called roof tiles collision. The spin for the collision I think will actually increase quite substantially. I'm going to crank that up to 250, I think. Oh, 250 and 250 rotation, so when it actually hits the deck it's going to spin quite rapidly like that. The force in here I obviously need to make unique and get rid of that and add in the tiles and slats. And the gravity I have already got set up in here earlier on. Into the killing speed and rotation, I'm going to rename it. Let's just make sure we've got the right name. I'm just going to pull that out there. So roof, what do we call it? Roof tiles. Okay, speed and spin and speed can be basically set to nothing. The force I'm gonna copy through from here again, so copy that guy and then instance it across to there. Okay, that's okay, that's okay, and then the last thing I need to do is just tweak this event, so I'm just going to rename that, get rid of the 01, and then rename this to roof tiles moving again. Okay, speed I can leave as is, spin I can leave as is as well, but obviously we need to stick the right vortex in here, so it's this one I need to copy. There we go, copy that and then drop that in there. So gravity is already set in there, the force is set in there, spin set, the collision test is set as well, so that's all of it sorted out apart from the script operator. So I'm just going to go through and edit the script, so let's make sure we do that right now. So basically what we need to do is obviously same deal as before, is just simply amend the names in here. So we need to amend the array name. So in this particular one I think what we'll do is we'll actually set the name to move tiles slats array equals tiles slats, again same name as in the scene, tiles slats. So move tiles slats array equals all the objects in the scene that are called tiles slats as the array, and then replace the array name in here, so it's move tiles slats array for the transform, and that references the transformation matrix of the system. So that's that sorted out, so I can just kill that now and then copy the script operator, instance it across to there and instance it across to there. Just making sure it's at the bottom above this speed test, and that is pretty much it for our baking. So I'm going to save the guy out, making sure that I'm having real time turned off. Okay, that one last quick save. Obviously it's taking a little bit longer to save now because we've got a fair amount of keyframe information to save out as well. Turn the system back on, or this new roof tiles one anyway, and then I'm simply just going to play through here. So you notice that almost immediately the tiles get picked up and swirled around, which is exactly what we want. So these are obviously considerably lighter than everything else, so they stay in the air a lot longer and are basically dragged into the vortex a lot quicker and a lot easier. Okay, so that's our entire system baked out. So I'm just going to turn this system off, go back to frame 0, close particle view for a second, and then I'm going to bring all of these guys back in and then click on the play button and let's see what happens. Actually, I'm going to make it real time, and then we can scoot back here and play through. So this is pretty much what we're going to get at render time now. So you can see these slats again sucked right up the vortex now, all the way up there. Okay, before they exit and then start being flung down to the ground. So if I just pull this across, we can see what's going on outside the camera viewport. So if we go through here, got this explosive blast outwards, so they're getting flung right out before obviously they start coming back down over here. So we've got this large distribution of debris. That works quite well. Okay, so that's our system baked out. So what I'm going to do at this particular stage is I'm going to save this out as Barn Tornado baked. So if you decide to scoot forward to this particular stage, what you can do is simply just load in this baked scene and the entire system is already set up for you. So I'm going to carry on and I'm going to save this out as finished now. So we can simply just go through and set up the rest of the systems for the dust and debris. So at this stage, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to render out a quick frame just to see what that currently looks like. Now we should have, if memory serves, some motion blur within these guys. Well, there we go. Reason being is because all the objects in the scene I've already enabled motion blur on there. So we've got a nice kind of like the slats being peeled away there. We can start seeing these support frames underneath as well. So we've got this nice kind of distribution that's going through. So if I pull that all the way to about here and then do another render, we should see a nice kind of distribution of the slats.